to the humble servant Messiah that we see in Scripture. And I am not for a second attracted to the smells and bells. Why? Because I know what it means. I know what's going on up there at the altar, and I know what they think is going on, and that is a denial of the finished work of Jesus Christ. That man up there thinks he's making Jesus present upon that altar. And everyone going up to receive of this will not be perfected by it. That is a denial of what the Bible teaches about the death of Christ. So I can't rejoice in that. I can't find that attractive. And I don't understand why anybody would. And it concerns me when people go, it's just so beautiful. If you can separate the external from the meaning, okay, silly me, I can't do that.
The buildings and so forth. I do find all of that very attractive, and so I can understand people who would want to be Catholic because of those things. But ultimately, it does get down to doctrine. And if you can't in good conscience subscribe to the doctrine, then I think you shouldn't be a Catholic. And similarly, I couldn't be a Presbyterian or an...
Similarly, so my disagreements with Rome, similarly, same categories with Presbyterian. So this brings papacy, Mary, indulgences, purgatory, mass, priesthoods, all this stuff at same level. Same level. Really? That's amazing.
Anglican or an Episcopalian, because I just don't believe the doctrines that these denominations teach. And so, even though I may be very attracted to them in other ways, I couldn't be a member of that denomination. And so ultimately, I think if we're not going to be religious hypocrites, we have to ask ourselves, can I in good conscience believe the things that, in this case, the Catholic Church stands for? And I find myself over and over again saying, well, I can't really affirm that in good conscience.
Dr. Craig, the Virgin Mary is a real sticking point as well between Catholics and Protestants. Probably a lot of misunderstanding there as to her status. There was a move a while back to really elevate Mary almost to the equality with Christ, co-redemptrix. I don't think that ever got off the ground.
Never got off the ground? How about it has been the teaching of the popes for 120 years? You see, something can be a teaching. It can be a doctrine without being a dogma. And the last I had seen a number of years ago was over 6 million petitions. 6 million signatures on petitions had been submitted to the Vatican to define that dogma. So that's not getting off the ground. It just was not defined as a dogma. So you can believe it, along with all the popes who have taught it, and the language is used in Vatican II documents, but you don't have to. It's not de fide. It's not definitional of the faith, but you can certainly believe it. As blasphemous and absurd as it is, along with the other Marian dogmas that are just as blasphemous about the assumption. That, however, is de fide. Though in Western Roman Catholicism, I would sort of doubt even a majority of people believe it, which is, one of your major issues. That we won't get into right now.
In the Catholic Church, but there was a move there. That was very distressing to Protestants as well, who see Catholics as worshiping Mary, a human being.
And Catholics resist that vigorously, say we do not worship Mary. She is honored, but she is not the subject of worship.
It would be nice if he would provide a criticism here of the fallacious Roman Catholic apologetic without just repeating it. Yes, Rome denies worshiping Mary. The means by which she does has been fallacious since the days of the Reformation and has only gotten more so with the exaltation of Mary that has taken place. You got to realize, two of the major Marian dogmas were defined after the Reformation. And so the reformers could only respond to what Rome had defined up to that point. But two of those dogmas have been defined since then, 1854 and 1950. So bodily assumption issues, immaculate conception issues were present in Roman Catholic piety at that time, but had not yet been dogmatically defined. In the same way, but not in the same way, but the concept of latria and dulia and hyperdulia was present at the day of the Reformation, and you can read Calvin, who shreds that argumentation in the Institutes and in his other works, and when he was writing his antidote to the Council of Trent. Shreds it because it's totally shreddable. It is not defensible. Listen to the debate we did with Patrick Madrid on that subject.
And here you have one of these situations where, again, the doctrine seems to be right, but the practice in many cases does seem to verge on idolatry.
No. The doctrine is not even close to right. What are you talking about? Bodily assumption, immaculate conception as dogmas, definition of the faith? I'm sure Dr. Craig has probably never listened to Jerry Matitix, who, of course, is not an Orthodox Roman Catholic anymore. Well, from his perspective, he's one of the only Orthodox Roman Catholics there are. But I wonder what he would say if someone like Jerry Matitix stood in his presence. Because Jerry said this when he was still an Orthodox Roman Catholic. What would he say to Jerry Matitix when he said that you have the exact same epistemological warrant to believe in the bodily assumption of Mary as you have for the resurrection of Jesus Christ? What would William Lane Craig say to that? Because we know, the minimal facts argument, this is absolutely central to his apologetic. But from Rome's perspective, the reason you believe in the resurrection and the reason you believe in the bodily assumption is the same reason. The church says so. The church says so. So don't tell me they've got the theology right but the practice wrong. They got them both wrong. Big time. And again, if Paul anathematizes the Judaizers in Galatia for the addition of one thing to the gospel, and Rome adds both the Immaculate Conception and the bodily assumption as de fide and anathematizes anyone who rejects these things,